When severe dementia or aggressive tumors spread through the human brain, the physical pathways for memory and thought deteriorate. The tissue physically withers. Yet, in rare cases, right before death, patients with nearly destroyed cognitive hardware experience a sudden, blinding flash of mental clarity. These occurrences are recorded throughout clinical history. In the AWARE studies by Dr. Sam Parnia, researchers documented hundreds of patients who biologically crossed the threshold of death. Survivors described lucid, well-structured thoughts with a clarity their damaged brain shouldn't allow. This creates a scientific paradox. If consciousness is strictly biological, structured thought cannot happen inside a physically broken brain. This medical mystery leads toward a difficult conclusion. If the mind can function while the brain is failing, human awareness may not be entirely dependent on the survival of living tissue. Humans have long sought physical proof for what happens after the body fails. In 1901, Dr. Duncan Macdougall attempted a literal measurement of the soul. Macdougall operated on the assumption that if the soul is real, it must possess physical mass. He placed terminally ill patients on industrial scales, waiting for the exact moment of death to see if the body shed weight as the soul departed. The experiment yielded inconsistent results and was abandoned. Modern science generally views the idea of a physical soul as a category error. Consciousness left no footprint on the scale because it doesn't occupy space as matter does. The failure of the 1901 experiment suggests we were looking for the wrong kind of evidence. To understand why a dying brain can suddenly become lucid, we have to look past physical mass and reconsider the architecture of awareness itself. A hypothesis known as substance dualism views the mind and the physical body as distinct entities. In this model, the brain functions like a radial antenna, passively receiving an external frequency rather than generating it internally. Modern quantum physics and general relativity provide a theoretical basis for this interaction. Both fields allow for data transfer between systems without the exchange of physical energy or mass. A signal can interact with the physical brain while remaining non-physical itself. If this model holds, the body serves as a temporary biological vehicle, a way for the mind to interact with the physical world temporarily. This clarifies the mystery of terminal lucidity. If the brain is just a receiver, the signal remains perfectly intact even when the physical hardware breaks. For a few moments before death, the underlying awareness simply breaks through the static of the failing machine. Ancient Eastern philosophers mapped this receiver relationship thousands of years ago. Their texts describe a self that exists independently of the flesh. In Hindu philosophy, the Jiva is the spark of life that carries the individual ego. It inhabits the physical body as one might wear a set of clothes, useful for a time, but eventually discarded. Beyond the individual ego lies the Atman, the ultimate, eternal essence. It is pure consciousness, entirely separate from the changes and decay of the material world. Similar frameworks appear in the Buddhist concept of Gandhabba, consciousness energies moving between existences, and the Christian view of a permanent individual soul. Across millennia, these disparate traditions have all described an underlying non-local energy. Their descriptions of awareness outlasting the body align with the observations doctors are making in terminal wards today. The National Institute on Aging is now using EEG devices to track terminally ill patients in real time, seeking a physical signature for these final moments of clarity. The goal is to identify biological biomarkers of terminal lucidity. If they can show that the mind operates via processes independent of a healthy brain, it would provide a neurological map for substance dualism. Despite these tools, a boundary remains. No one has returned from final brain death to provide a definitive scientific answer of what happens when the signal and the receiver finally part. If the brain is indeed a temporary vessel for a separate consciousness, then the physical body is a unique, time-limited opportunity. The fact that the receiver eventually fails is what gives this specific physical existence its value. The clinical evidence of terminal lucidity suggests our awareness is not just a biological coincidence. Because this physical shell is fleeting, every moment spent within it becomes a rare chance to make this specific existence matter.